We've scoured the massive 500,000 person Football Manager database looking for the best players whose fathers also played professionally. And now that we've found all those players, we're going to use them to construct a nepotism 11. And we've turned them into a club because at the end of this video, we're going to put them into the Premier League and see how these silver spoon soccerers do. Soccerers? Is that a... No, footballers sounds better. I'll concede that. We've used Football Manager's quick pick feature to determine the best player at every position in a 4-2-3-1, and the striker for Nepotism FC is Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland is obviously one of the best strikers in the world right now, but his dad, Alf Inge Haaland, made 34 appearances for Norway in a career where he made over 150 Premier League appearances. He played for Nottingham Forest, Leeds, and Manchester City from 1993 to 2003. He was, of course, famously subjected to Roy Keane's vicious tackle that prematurely ended his career. But his son is chasing Manchester City redemption and returns to the Premier League as part of Nepotism FC. Next, it's time for our left winger, and it's none other than the Italian stallion Federico Chiesa. Federico's dad was Enrico Chiesa, who made 17 appearances for the Italian national team, and he was a journeyman all over the Italian leagues, scratching out most of his career with Parma, Fiorentina, and Siena. He was active as a first-team footballer as a striker from 1990 all the way to 2010. Federico Chiesa is also another Premier League footballer himself, although you'd be forgiven for forgetting that since he's just barely scratched any time at all with Liverpool because of injuries. But now it's time for Nepotism FC's right winger. It's none other than Timothy Weah. That's right, there's an American in here. America! And this might be the most obvious case of football nepotism on this entire list, because Timothy Weah's dad is George Weah, a man who won the Ballon d'Or in his footballing career and then went on to serve as the Liberian president for 6 years. If you don't know where Liberia is, it's right here on a map, and it's where George Weah was born. He eventually made his way to Monaco in 1988 and would play for them, PSG, and AC Milan over an illustrious 12-year stretch. He also made a brief appearance in the Premier League with Chelsea and then Manchester City before winding down his career. But his son Tim was born and raised in the United States and currently plays for Juventus and is the best right-wing nepotism player in the world. But time for the number 10, and you know there's going to be a lot of good options at this position in the nepotism ranks. But it's Alexis McAllister, the Liverpool number 10, also a World Cup champion with Argentina. Alexis McAllister's dad is Carlos McAllister, who made 3 appearances for the Argentina national team. Over a decade, he made over 240 appearances for Argentinos Juniors and Boca Juniors, with his career finally coming to a close in 1999. He also, like George Weah, got involved in politics and was actually the Secretary of Sport in Argentina from 2015 to 2018. And if I may tack on another also to that, there are 3 McAllisters. Alexis is in the starting 11. There are 2 other ones that made our list. His brothers Francis McAllister and Kevin McAllister, both of whom are high-level professional players. But it's time for the defensive midfield, and this is where we find the more advanced of our 2 options. One of the players that everybody loves to sign on Football Manager, Khéphren Thuram. He plays for Juventus and the French national team. And his dad, quite simply, is one of the best defenders of all time, Lilian Thuram. Lilian Thuram was born in the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe before moving to France at the age of 9. Now, of course, Guadeloupe is a part of France, so I mean mainland France. He made over 400 appearances for Monaco, Parma, and Juventus. But perhaps most strikingly, Lilian Thuram played 142 times for France. And he was, of course, a part of the 1998 French World Cup championship team, the first ever World Cup win for France. And of course, he has another son on this team, Marcus Thuram, who plays for Inter and is, by rating, the best player in the entire team that's not in the starting 11. So both Thurams are going to factor heavily into this season that these guys are about to play in the Prem. But it's time for the other midfielder in the double pivot at the back of this 4-2-3-1, and that is Marcos Llorente. Now, Marcos Llorente qualifies for the Nepotism 11 because of his father, Paco Llorente. Paco made over 100 appearances for Real Madrid from 1987 to 1994 and cracked the Spanish national team exactly 1 time. Now, if you want to take this even further, Paco is actually the nephew of what Wikipedia describes as a legendary legendary Real Madrid player in Francisco Gento. He's a bit before my time, but the lineage for Marcos Llorente is deep. Marcos has made 19 appearances for Spain and played for both Real Madrid and now Atletico Madrid for quite a while, both clubs that his father Paco played for as well. But interestingly enough, the weakest part of this team, by far, is the defense. You wouldn't have figured that. You'd think defending was the easiest thing to pass down between generations because it's more ball knowledge and reading the game. But we start at left back. And Nepotism 11's left back is the mercurial Marcos Alonso. The longtime Chelsea left back is still kicking, and his dad, also confusingly named Marcos Alonso, made 22 appearances for Spain over his illustrious career. Unfortunately, the elder Marcos Alonso passed away in 2023, but he leaves behind a legacy of over 200 games played with Atletico Madrid and Barcelona, and helping Spain to a runner-up finish at the 1984 European Championships. But now to right back on Nepotism FC, and we're headed to the Bundesliga, picking up Mitchell Weiser. The Werder Bremen fullback's not one of the flashier names on this list, but he certainly holds his own. A decade ago, he was breaking into the Bayern Munich first team, and he's bounced around the Bundesliga ever since. That is, before he was picked up by Nepotism FC, obviously. His dad was Patrick Weiser, and remarkably, he's actually the first professional parent here that did not make an international appearance for his nation. He did not play for Germany, but he did play over 260 times for Köln and Wolfsburg, and had a career that lasted 16 years as a professional. He actually went on to a brief coaching career and made it all the way up to an assistant coach position at Köln. But now it's time to dip into that incredibly scary area for this team, the center back positions. And we'll start with the one that carries a recognizable name, Daley Blind. And while he might be getting on in years, the longtime Ajax and Manchester United man is still the best option that this Nepotism FC has at the center back position. And he qualifies through his dad, Danny Blind. Danny made over 370 Ajax appearances, which means between the two of them, they're near 600 total Ajax appearances. He actually retired at the club after 13 years, and that was after he made a ton of appearances at Sparta Rotterdam to start his career. He also made 42 Dutch national team appearances over a 10-year span. He also boasts a particularly ridiculous stat that I'm just going to read verbatim. He's one of only 2 Dutch players, together with Arnold Muren, to have won all UEFA club competitions. Truly a part of Ajax's era of dominance. And as a result, he actually became the manager of Ajax. And all of this might make Daley Blind the king of Nepotism FC, because he started playing for Ajax right when his dad became the director of football at Ajax. Danny Blind also coached the Dutch national team from 2015 to 2017, which means he coached his son, Daley Blind, on the Dutch national team. It doesn't get more Nepotism 11 than that. But at the other center back position, Nepotism 11 has to reach, and it pulls out 21-year-old Hungarian Martin Dardai. Dardai plays in the Zweite Bundesliga with Hertha Berlin. So a bit of a drop in quality here for Nepotism FC, but he qualifies through his dad, Paul Dardai, who played 61 times for the Hungarian national team as part of a career that, you guessed it, took place almost exclusively at Hertha Berlin. He played there for 14 years and ran up right about 300 appearances, so it's pretty easy for him to get his son an opportunity to play for the same team. But don't get me wrong, Martin Dardai is still a legit player. I mean, he beat out one of the McAllister brothers for this spot. That takes us to goalkeeper, which is fairly obvious. It's Kasper Schmeichel, the Leicester City legend who played there for 11 years. He's still got it to be the goalkeeper of Nepotism FC. And I know some of these might be obvious, but just in case you don't know, his dad was Peter Schmeichel, the incredibly tenured Manchester United goalkeeper who minded the net for a part of that Man U golden era. He made 129 appearances for Denmark and won the 1992 European Championships in one of the greatest footballing upsets in history. They had failed to qualify for the tournament, got in anyways because another nation had to drop out, and then won it. I just love that story, so I take every opportunity to tell it. Of course, in order for this team to be able to play an entire Premier League season, we had to round out the squad. And thanks to my dude Coco, who helps me put these videos together, we had found a truly ridiculous number of players, a lot of whom we just included on this roster anyways as youth players for this club, like Christian Shevchenko or Denzel Seedorf. But there is an actual bench in place. At striker, there is Giovanni Simeone, the son of the Argentina international who now happens to coach Atletico Madrid. He's been there a little while. His name's Diego. And as another backup forward, there's also Rocco Simic. His dad, Dario, made 100 appearances for the Croatian national team, last playing in 2008. Substitutes on the wings include names like Justin Kluivert. His father, Patrick Kluivert, played 79 times for the Netherlands up to 2004. He's actually the 4th highest goal scorer for the Netherlands all time. Of course, there's also Francisco Conceição. The Portuguese wonder kid's literally coached by his dad, which is just vintage nepotism FC. There's 18-year-old Dutchman Ruben van Bommel. His dad, Mark van Bommel, made 79 appearances for the Netherlands, and basically all I've learned from making this video is that there is a lot of nepotism development in the Netherlands. But who can forget another American, Gio Reyna, to round out our group of wingers and attacking midfielders. His dad, Claudio Reyna, one of the best players in US national team history. There are 3 subs in the midfield. Isak Bergman Johannesson from Iceland. His dad, Joey Gudjonsson, played 34 times for the Icelandic national team up to 2007. And if you're wondering why he has a different last name, it's time for Fun Facts with Zealand. You see, I don't know what this is called, but Iceland practices a naming style that is very different from the rest of the world. It used to be much more common. Remember the child we were talking about, Isak Bergman Johannesson? His last name comes from his dad's first name, literally Johannes' son. Joey was just a nickname. His name was Johannes Karl Gudjonsson. What happens if Joey has a daughter? Well, then their last name is Johannes' daughter. There's your fun fact of the day. Pretty simple once you get the hang of it. Just kind of hard to keep track of who's in what family sometimes. 17-year-old Englishman Archie Gray made it onto this team. But the fact that he's an Englishman's a little awkward because his dad, Andy Gray, made 2 appearances for Scotland in 2003. Then rounding out the midfield subs is Patrick Berg of Norway. His dad, Orion Berg, made 19 appearances for the Norwegian national team. The wingback subs were Birindelli and Max, both of whose fathers made at least 1 appearance for their respective national teams. And at center back, you have another McAllister and another Kluivert, which means this first 26 going in for Nepotism FC has 3 pairs of siblings on it. But Nepotism FC is finally set. It's time to find out how they stack up. To create Nepotism FC, we've removed Manchester City. We figured since Erling Haaland was the star striker on this new team anyways, we might as well just do away with them. Once those charges come in, they won't be here anyways. Am I right? Okay. Nepotism FC would start off the campaign on the wrong foot, losing the FA Community Shield in its first 2 league matches to Tottenham and Newcastle. Don't worry, Erling Haaland was still scoring. He had 2 against Tottenham, and he scored the only goal against Newcastle. And there were some other fun competitions for them to play in because they took Man City's place, like the Club World Cup, which they actually failed to win, losing the semi-final against Al Ittihad, but taking 3rd place with a gutsy 1-0 win over Al Ahly. And they ran into a couple of other tough spells, like a loss to Bournemouth, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Arsenal all back-to-back. The early season woes were summed up in a 2-0 loss at home against Ipswich in their first Carabao Cup match. But as the season rumbled along, they started to figure it out. The defense got better, the wins started to flow, and even though it was too late for them to recover any good league position, they made it all the way to the FA Cup final. The matchup was against Liverpool, a team that Nepotism FC had failed to beat on every occasion this season, and they would again in Wembley. And that's probably because Liverpool dropped 33 wins in 38 matches to pick up 102 points and win the league. So yeah, they were okay. But even though nepotism gets frowned upon, and I had no idea what to expect from this team, they finished 8th in the league with 58 points. And Erling Haaland, of course, got the most goals in the league, 22, or at least he tied with Alexander Isak. But that defensive weakness in this nepotism team didn't end up costing them too much, allowing 54 goals on the season, which was 9th best in the league. But it turns out that nepotism can only get you so far. No, but this was interesting to put together. It almost feels like a national team where there's certain positions you're strong and weak and there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe this is proof that Project Mbappe works, maybe it isn't. But what I do know is this video's officially over. But you can keep watching fun videos because we took Mbappe and locked him on the worst team in the world. We also had Erling Haaland play there as it was kind of like a control group thing. They scored a lot of goals.